for a while, I was really focused on bird signs. So when I would see a bald eagle or a red-tailed hawk or, a murder of crows or even just a robin that was doing something strange or interesting in my yard to get my attention, I would keep track of that. I would say I saw this bird while I was doing this, this time of day or where I was. I would put, just some context in around that message. And when you're tracking spiritual signs, it's not so much for you in that moment. You're collecting this data so that you can look back over time and notice the patterns that are occurring in those signs. Something that I really like to track is angel numbers. So I used to be really serious about tracking like every single angel number or repeating number that I would see. So it was like every single time that I saw 111, I would go and plug that into my app, 111. I've now gotten to the point where there are only like certain numbers that I will pay attention to, and they're tied to like certain situations or messages that I've received before. And I like to do a search in that app to see the last time. Yesterday, for example, I saw 44444, so 5 fours. I'm not sure if I just did that right, but I saw 5 fours in a row, and I put that in because I thought I don't normally see 5. Like normally it's 3 or 4, and I'd only seen that number a handful of times and tracked it in my system. So then I looked back at the calendar for those dates when I had noticed that number before, and I realized by looking back in the calendar that major things had happened for me sort of right after I saw that number. It was like I could see that I had like some challenging situations going on, and then like right after that something big and positive happened in my life. So now I know that okay, I might be encountering some challenges in the next few days or the next week or so, but something really good is going to come of that after those challenges come and go. So that's just a very personal example of why it might make sense to you to track different spiritual signs. I also keep track of my dreams because I know that I receive messages from my guides in my dreams sometimes. So I track anything and everything that could be a spiritual sign in that system, and that system is giving me a date and a timestamp. And it's just sort of a whole lot of information that might make sense to me later. And I'm tracking it right now just because I want to have the information in case I find that it's useful. So there are many applications, that you might use to sort of analyze this information that you're collecting, but just know that if it seems significant to you in the moment, it's worth keeping track of. So even if you just have a journal, maybe like a small notebook that you can keep with you on your person all the time, you could write it down in there. I personally like the app because I can search and I can put links and pictures and voice notes and whatever I want in that system, and I know that I can always go back to it and find it. But just use whatever method works for you and makes sense in your daily life, because you're constantly receiving messages, and the more that you track them, the more you'll be able to fully understand what those messages were about or what they were trying to warn you about or clue you in about ahead of time. That way you'll recognize the sign when it comes to you next time, and you'll know what it might mean and the different layers of meaning and significance that it could possibly have in your life.